Thank you, Madam President. With the presiding officer's help and the help of 48 others in this body, we provided back in March in an amendment, and then in final passage, we provided the biggest tax cut, largest tax cut for working families ever. It's called the Child Tax Credit. It's been several years in the making. We didn't make much progress the last 4 years, but an election of a new president, coupled with a new United States Senate, has made all the difference in the world. In my state, 2.4 million children are eligible. In 2.1 million of those, I'll get to that in a moment, we haven't reached everybody yet. 2.1 million children last week in the mail, in their mailbox, or in direct deposit in their parents' bank accounts. 2.1 million children were the beneficiaries of either $250 or $300 last week. So every month, July 15th, coming up August 15th, September 15th, October 15th, children from 0 to 5 will get, their parents will get $300 each of those months. If their children are 6 to 17, those families will get $250 per child. Almost every child, 92% of children in Ohio, roughly the same, 9 out of 10 in the state of Wisconsin, the presiding officer's state, will be getting their families will be getting these checks in the mail. In a sort of a macro big way, we know this does a number of things. First of all, it drops the poverty rate among America's children by almost 50%. Imagine that one bill we do drops the poverty rate among children in this country by 50%. Something government's never been able to do, and because of this child tax credit, the largest tax cut for working families in American history, it's going to make a huge difference on a macro way. Another, in a macro sort of way, people of Wisconsin and Ohio and other states will benefit because we're injecting this kind of money. In Ohio, last week, $550 million was sent to the state from the federal government to these children, to these families. And for most of these families, this is because the wealthiest people don't get this. It's 90%, it's 9 out of 10 families do, but that have children. So this money goes directly into these communities. They're going to be spending this money at the local grocery store, the local hardware store, to fix their cars so they don't miss work, to maybe take their kid once in a while to a restaurant. So the money's good. It's not going to be put in a Swiss bank account. It's going to be spent in local communities, making a difference. But that's sort of the big picture. The joy of working on this bill, and I started working on this in 2013, joined by Michael Bennet and Senator Booker, and then since he came, Senator Warnock and Senator Baldwin, the presiding officer, has been helpful, and Senator Wyden, the chair of the Finance Committee. The joy of this is to see how this affects individual families' lives. And so a couple of weeks ago, before the checks were sent out, I did a series of roundtables in Defiance and Findlay and Bryan and Cleveland and Dayton and Toledo and where else? In Youngstown and in Cincinnati. And I just asked families, what are you going to do with this money? And many families didn't know it was even coming. The word wasn't out yet. And I just heard some interesting comments. But then after the checks were sent out, I also heard stories. And here's what this means to families. One mother said, for the first time, I can now send my son to camp for a week, to a summer camp, first time in her life. A father said, I'm now going to be able to buy for my daughter. She loves fast pitch softball. She's really good. I'm going to be able to buy her the equipment to do that. A number of families said, we're now in a position where we can actually, without scrounging, so many American families can barely afford their rent. 25% of American families pay half their income in rent. Think about that. 1 out of 4 renters pay half their income in rent. One thing goes wrong in their lives, their car breaks down, they can end up being evicted. So what this $300 per child or $250 per child, for a lot of families, it just relieved the anxiety of the difficulty of putting together the money they need to pay the rent. Because the last week of a month for many families is different from the first 3, because the last week they start making cuts and not spending as much money on food, all the things they've got to do to pay their rent. This is going to alleviate, it's going to lift that burden off so many families. Other families that are a little more affluent, but still, hanging on to being middle class, are now able, they told me, to put $100 aside every month because of this child tax credit, because of the largest tax cut for working families ever. They're going to be able to put aside $100 a month for their child to go to Ohio State or to Denison or to Cleveland State or to Sinclair Community College in Ohio. So all the kinds of things. And Madam President, and I know you have in Wisconsin have thought about this. The best thing about this is it's not that, it's not Senator Baldwin or Senator Schumer or Senator McConnell or President Biden. It's not them saying to a family, okay, here's some money, here's where you're going to spend it. We're going to help you with this, we're going to help you. It's trusting these families. This $250 a month or $300 a month these families get, they get this money and they decide what's best for their family. And that's what, it's still, frankly, Madam President, inexplicable to me that everybody on this side of the aisle voted no. Every single one of them. They had 2 chances. They voted no on an amendment on the bill, and then they voted no on the bill to give the largest tax cut in working families ever. And we all know around here, it's no secret that this side of the aisle likes tax cuts. They just like them for rich people. But they always argue, we cut taxes on the rich, and it'll trickle down, it'll help everybody. Well, there's kind of no evidence for that. But they keep doing it because they know that it plays really well with the rich contributors. But this is what tax cuts are really about. The child tax credit puts money in people's pockets. It gives them the choice of how to spend those dollars on behalf of their families. And it helps the community because there's more money in the community. And, we know that. And we know that the best kind of infrastructure, the best way to provide to build infrastructure in this country is to build a foundation for families. I'm for this bill that we're considering now, water, sewer, highways, bridges. I want to do that, but I want to build a foundation for families too, not just a better highway system, a better water and sewer system, but I want to give families broadband. I want to give families a little bit money like this does. I want to help families with housing, because then that foundation, these families can launch their children into a more prosperous future. And that's, to me, what this is all about. That's why the child tax credit's the most important thing I've ever worked on in my career. And I think it's one of the most important things Congress has done in a quarter century. Madam President, I yield the floor.